Hello and welcome to my channel. Now, if you've seen some of my videos before, you'll notice that the screen's a little bit different. I've known I needed to make a change for a while, and I think honestly I probably just need a new camera at this point. The one I use is not very good. But props to Andrew Maddox for finally making me actually do something about it with his comment noting it's something I needed to do for a while. And so let me know if this is better, if the quality got weirder by having the smaller screen. So let me know what you think in the comments. But let's get to the topic of today's video. And that is Prince of Dogs. Let's turn it the right way. Prince of Dogs by Kate Elliot, which is book 2 in the Crown of Stars series. Now, this cover is awful, I have to say. So for your sake, I'm going to put up the alternate cover. This is the original cover. The alternate cover is a little bit less bad. But don't let that fool you. The book is very, very good. In my review of the first book, King's Dragon, I praised Kate Elliot for her world building and just everything that she set up in the first book. Though I did admit the pacing was a little bit slow, I commented I was pretty sure with all of the world building and the setup, book 2 was going to pick up in a big way, and boy does that happen in Prince of Dogs. Prince of Dogs is still not necessarily a particularly fast-paced book, so to speak, especially with some of the faster-paced books that we see that are more common. But with the world set up the way that it was, events start moving forward very quickly and very effectively in the world around the characters. In this book, we actually follow Elaine quite a lot less, and we focus more on Lyeth, who is the other main character, and we get some POVs from people mostly at the start around her, including her companion from her old village, Hannah, who's also with her on the Eagles, including Ivar, someone she also knew from the old village who's locked in a monastery but still dreams of being with her. We have Sister Rosvita, whose curiosity just might get the better of her, and of course we have Sanglant, who is still the prisoner of the savage Aika, and has been there since rotting away in the fallen city of Ghent. We see with Lyeth her past coming back to haunt her in many ways. We also get some new characters as well, in the way of Anna and Matthias, who are the two last survivors, these children from Ghent who managed to get out and actually play quite an important role. At first I thought they were just going to be in the prologue, just kind of showing the scene as it needed to happen, kind of like Jordan would do, where you get a random throwaway POV just to see something. But Kate Elliot actually really put them into the story really, really well, and they were very important all throughout. There is a lot of character work in this book, but the big thing I want to talk about first in relation to the characters and the change in POVs is the scene transitions and the world building around it. Now, of course I have to talk a little bit more about the world building, but in all seriousness, Kate Elliot could teach a clinic on transitions and on world building. Both are just done so masterfully, and in book 2 especially, the weaving of the narrative is done extremely, extremely well. With POV changes, sometimes those can be abrupt, and it can be rough when you don't see a main character for a while in a lot of books. But in Prince of Dogs, it really works because the flow just works perfectly going from scene to scene. We sometimes will have characters who, partway through a conversation, will switch from one to the other, and then we'll continue on with that character after. We have others where someone's thinking of a character, and then we kind of check in with them and see where they are. And it all brings the story together, weaving these different characters until it finally comes together at the end, where we kind of see our main characters all converging for some big events. And as for world building, we really do get to see quite a lot more on top of what was already set up. The little details that I really liked in the first book, where just things were realistic and there were all these little things to really build the world and make it feel real, that's all still there, but we get to delve a lot deeper into the more mystical elements of the world, including sorcery and the mathematician. I think I'm saying that right. They're kind of like, sorcerers, but they use math, that sort of thing, algebra teachers. But in general, we get to learn a lot more about them, but also taking a look at some other parts of the world and get to see a lot more of the Aika, this savage race that we do not know a ton about. And we learn a lot more about their history, their culture, and the fact that they have a really deep history as well. They have very strong beliefs in what their vision of what's going on in the world is as well. And we get to see a ton more there, which I thought was really interesting, because they're a really interesting creation of a different kind of human-like creature. Instead of just having the old, oh, there's some goblins or orcs, something completely different, and really fleshed out a lot more in this book. We also, of course, get a few more mentions and start to get a little bit of a peek over the curtain of the very mysterious Seven Sleepers, who appear to be set up to be very important in potentially the whole series based on some things that are set up in this book. And with all of these things, the seeds were really well set in the first book. Some were more obvious, some less obvious, but it was all setting up for just the more things that are to come. And with Elaine, I mentioned his scenes are still pretty important because we see through his eyes, through his connection with the Ica called Fifth Son from the first book, he actually kind of lives through his eyes, and that's where we actually firsthand get to see a lot of the things that are happening with the Ica. So that, which was very much set up in the first book, comes in and lets us see a lot more about them. And there's some really interesting plot lines with the Ica in general, and with Elaine, even though he's in it less, his plots are very important and are still moving forward, showing his character and getting everything to go in general. We do follow a variety of different characters with different personalities, different pasts, different motivations, and they all have different ways of dealing with the world as well. And very often it's the characters' actions that really tell us more about the characters than just being told what they are, and sometimes their actions and how they think about themselves or they think about things are very, very different. And I think that really shows great character building, because we see through other characters' eyes sometimes, or just by what someone's doing, who these people really are, even if it's not who they think they are, instead of just having to be told everything that's going on. So character work, like I said, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is very solid in this book. Elliot also has a way of taking the predictable and turning it on its head. I commented on the first book as well. There were several base character archetypes that it seemed like she was going to roll with, then she changed it up. And that happens a lot here, where there are still some predictable plot points and plot lines, partially because the story flows so well that you can see where it's going based on that. But Elliot likes to lead you to things, let you believe things, and then make you doubt whether everything you know is actually true. All of these little hints and details set up potential really big reveals later and just shroud a lot of events in mystery, even as you get more answers, which is a great way to keep somebody wanting to read, and it certainly has worked for me. Overall, the book flowed really well all on its own, let alone part of a series. It does set up a lot for book 3, and it builds on a lot of book 1, but it's just a very strong entry and had a very complete story on its own, which I always like. You don't want to have the books where you feel like you just have to read it to get to the next one and not a lot's happening, and that definitely isn't the case here. And I really enjoyed the first book, and I liked book 2 quite a lot even more. And honestly, if the quality keeps up with the Crown of Stars series, this may become a new one of my favorite series of all time, because I have enjoyed every moment of reading these books so far. So I will certainly be reading the next 5 books. There are 7 total in Crown of Stars, and I'm really, really hoping Kate Elliott keeps it up through the rest of the series, because I have enjoyed these first 2 books tremendously. So with that, that is my review of Prince of Dogs by Kate Elliott, book 2 in the Crown of Stars series. If you enjoyed this video, then please feel free to give it a like, and if you'd like to see more of my content, please feel free to subscribe.